Okay, so principal agent problem is the divorce of ownership between shareholders and managers, and what that means is that they have conflicting objectives. So that conflicting objectives is the key problem here. That is because the CEOs or the managers are focusing on revenue max for their bonuses, and the shareholders would prefer profit max, as this will maximise their dividend. So there's a conflict there because this will reduce. So revenue max is also an example of satisficing. It is making some profits, but not the maximum profit. So that creates a problem. And when you have these conflicting objectives or conflicting incentives, then this leads to problems within the business. If you can just take down some notes in your books, somewhere on that page, page 12, maybe in the top left-hand corner, are some notes next to principal agent examples of that, and the key part being that, the divorce of ownership and the conflicting objectives. In terms of the principals and the agents in the example there, so in the PPI scandal, it was CEOs of the banks that were the agents and the principal were the shareholders. In the financial crisis, same kind of thing, in terms of banks being bailed out. So the incentive compatibility was firms doing things that would lead to the businesses going bankrupt. So not just focusing on revenue maximising, but doing some extremely risky activity that almost bankrupted the whole of the economy. In terms of other examples, so those are kind of significant examples within what we've looked at. You have an agent could be a dentist, and the principal is you, and you want healthy teeth, but the dentist wants a higher income, and their incentives to give you too much treatment. So that's a principal agent problem. They should be acting in your best interest, but they're acting in their own, and that means that you spend too much on dentistry and you end up with things you do not need in your mouth. In terms of divorce of ownership, another example here would be the PPI scandal. If you remember this advert on TV, Arnie trying to get people to have PPI claims. The PPI scandal was linked to kind of some of the subprime examples. So banks behaving irresponsibly and creating issues in the economy. And if you had Chris Buck as your business studies teacher last year, or your business studies teacher this year, ask him about his role in the PPI scandal and how he was part of the principal agent problem. So if you go to the next page, I'll save that for next week. We'll skip that for a second. We'll have a little pause now. So very quickly, we'll just pause for a second. Remember we said this is a long period of time in the afternoon. So what I'd like you to do is just stand up out of your seats for a second. Stand your tiptoes or just have a little stamp on the floor. Stretch your legs, stretch your arms, just move around a little bit. You've been sitting for a period of time. Let's wake ourselves up a little bit, get the blood flowing. And then if you can sit back down. And let's look at the next part of the lesson. So just very quickly on your whiteboards, you have a number of logos there. Do you know the logo? And do you know whether they're a big or a small company? So I'll give you about a minute or two. Just a quick look at those logos. Do you know what they represent? Do you know whether they're big or small companies? have a little think. So top left, you have the Sage in Gateshead, Newcastle University, Nestle, big food conglomerate, NHS, missing the N in the H&S, ARM, ARM, which is very pertinent because potentially it's going to get bought out by a big American company, Nvidia, and was bought out by a Japanese company, SoftBank, and it was one of the discounts that Brexit gave businesses around the world that had devalued the pound and gave them a very nice discount on British businesses. Longhorns Restaurant Newcastle on the left, Unilever, again, big Anglo-Dutch conglomerate, one of the biggest companies in the UK, BBC, coffee, I think it's the Pink Lane coffee shop in Newcastle, Renault, Armani, Phoenix, Lane 7 just around the corner, OCC, small coffee company in Newcastle, Vodafone, massive global telecoms company, and Oxfam. So just a little refresher there on the different logos. Just a quick something for you to think about. Where do you think big and small businesses go? So of those businesses, do you think that big businesses make large profits, big businesses make small profits, small businesses make large profits, or small businesses make small profits? Just think where you might put those businesses you've just seen. So just a few examples from those businesses. Sage Gateshead doesn't make any profit. It's a not-for-profit company. Has 80 full-time staff. Market share, one of 6 large concert venues in Newcastle. So not huge, not tiny either. Unilever profits 7.5 billion. That's profits, not revenue. So revenue's vastly larger than that. 172,000 employees globally. It's the world's 3rd largest consumer goods company. So Procter & Gamble and Nestle are the other big consumer goods companies. Newcastle University, again, doesn't make any profit, but it has an income of about 62 million, and has 2,000 academic staff, 1,500 admin staff, and it's one of 2 large universities in Newcastle. So in Newcastle, very large, globally, less so within the UK, one of the Russell universities. NHS, again, no profits, but 110 billion income from the government, and 1.4 million workers, and in theory, its market share is 100% in the UK in terms of free healthcare, but there are some private sector parts to it. ARM, big chip manufacturer, 400 million profits, 4,000 employees, mostly in the UK, and nearly every mobile phone company in the world, up until quite recently, they developed microchips for. So it was one of the crown jewels of UK production, which is potentially going to get sold to an American company. So things we're going to look at in the second part of the session, 2 ways in which businesses can grow. So specific key terms here about how business can grow, and looking at whether horizontal integration will necessarily benefit shareholders. So we need to find out what integration is and what horizontal integration is. Types of growth we're going to look at are organic and inorganic, but then we're also going to look at types of integration, and we'll look at the benefits of growing through integration. Quick reminder, the homework is those 3 things: read up, write up, warm up. Last week we looked at business objectives, and we've just finished a bit on that. Next week we'll be looking at demergers and costs and revenues. Okay, another quick little thing for you to think about. Use your whiteboards, write down some ideas or write down some notes. Why might a business wish to be big? So what would make a business want to grow in size? And why might a business want to shrink or stay small? So just on the 2 sides of your whiteboard or sheet of paper, Thinking about those small local businesses and also the big global businesses, why would they want to be big? Why won't you want to be small or shrink? 30 seconds, just jot down some ideas. So if you can get out a sheet of paper, and just make a table. On the left-hand side, reasons why they want to be big. On the right-hand side, why they might want to be small. And we'll just add a few notes into your notebooks from this. So reasons why businesses might want to be big, you just take some notes down, but you can add things that I'm saying. Partly to reduce competition. And the purpose for reducing competition is to control the price in the market. So the bigger you grow and you force out smaller businesses, you are more able to raise your prices. And reduce your costs, linked in with profit maximization as well. And as you gain size, you gain bargaining power, you gain the ability to monopolize supply, and you can reduce your costs per unit. And you can reduce the risk of your business, so you are less likely to go out of business if you're a big business, and also secure the future. It could be a managerial objective. Some CEOs like to be CEOs of increasingly large businesses. It potentially gives you higher pay because you're controlling more. And some businesses can compete internationally. So you may saturate your domestic market. You've got 100% of the market. If you want to continue to grow, you can move into international markets and compete internationally. Benefits of being small or shrinking. You can be more responsive. You can respond to your customers more quickly. You can give them more accurately what they want. This allows you to kind of look at niche markets, which may allow you to charge an even higher price because you are providing a really specific product. As a startup, you might want to survive and just say small to test out the market, to see what the market wants and respond to it. Being small might allow you to be more able to compete internationally. You might be able to move quicker into a different market or test out a market. It might also help you to avoid inefficiency or overtrading. So sometimes businesses grow too fast, they take on too much debt, and they become unsustainable. But also becoming a big business might slow you down, and you may start to lose productive efficiency. In terms of what is better? Well, there's not a hard or a fast rule, but sometimes some of the benefits of big businesses are they employ a lot of people. So sometimes governments like bigger businesses because their employment in terms of increases in taxes, and also in terms of corporation tax, so income tax and corporation tax. Governments like them because they can benefit the balance of payments. So if you are a big business, you will bring profits back to that country. But also it can help with increasing the GDP of a country. They can use resources more efficiently, and they also tend to pay regular dividends. So a lot of people's pensions are linked to dividend payments, and not just share prices. Small businesses tend to create new jobs. So big businesses employ a lot of people, but the things that will get us out of a recession will be created mainly by smaller businesses increasing their jobs. And they tend to be more innovative or inventive. So our new products tend to have came from new businesses. And also they can gain a comparative advantage. So if you're thinking across to your trade that you're doing through globalization, this can improve a company's comparative advantage as well by gaining a new business. Okay. Just some examples of huge businesses or huge employers globally. Biggest employer globally is the US Department for Defense, 3.2 million people employed there. Chinese People's Army, 2.3 million people. So beyond that, you've got Walmart in terms of the first large private organisation, McDonald's 1.7 million, the Chinese National Petroleum Company 1.7, State Grid of China 1.6, and then there's our NHS 1.4. So not as large population-wise as America or China, but in terms of large employers globally, the NHS is one of the largest. Okay, next little task I'm going to ask you to do is to go to your booklets and go to page 5. So at the top of page 5, it should say business growth 3.1.2, examples of inorganic and organic growth. What I'd like you to do is to go to that first part, what is organic growth? Sorry, what is inorganic growth? Have a read of that, and then you have, you've got a little box below that, and the box needs you to fill in your answers to the questions. So difference between a merger and a takeover, an equation that would highlight a guaranteed benefit of a takeover, matching some key terms to organic and inorganic, and then a question around which company you'd want to invest in. And if you can do that, I'll give you about 7 or 8 minutes to do that. And I'll put an extra question up on the board while you do that. And then you can think about the answers to those questions. So 10 minutes, I'll put an extra question on the board in a second. Have a read through that and fill that handout in as best you can. So the additional question, which do you think is more likely for a small business, organic or inorganic growth? I'll leave that on the board while you have a go at the other question.